Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to cover in this video ways to handle the Scandinavian defense when you have the white pieces and you're playing against this knight to f6 system. So the knight to f6 system by black is going to arise after our traditional Scandinavian opening, and then rather than recapturing the pawn with the queen or gambiting it, he decides to play knight f6. This is a variation of the Scandinavian that's a little bit off the beaten path, and so I think a lot of players are selecting it based on that, based on this idea that maybe white is not going to be prepared for the best way to fight against it. It is not considered to be the best continuation for black, so as white we should be able to feast on this and take advantage of it. And I think it's really relevant to be making this video right now. In a lot of my games, probably as many as 50 to 60% of the games that I've faced against the Scandinavian lately in the last few weeks, I've been facing this knight to f6 system, whereas my game database on chess.com tells me that over the last 10 to 12 years that I've been on there, I face a traditional Scandinavian 2 times as often as I have faced this knight to f6 version. And all of a sudden lately, I'm facing it about half the time, rather than only 20 to 30% of the time. So I don't know if there are any chess YouTubers out there, or maybe a Chessable series on this knight to f6 system for black, but for whatever reason, it's been quite popular lately. And I wanted to let you guys know the best way to fight against it. So we don't, first of all, let me back up a little bit. What we don't want to do is try to defend this pawn with a move like c4. Black can have that pawn back. We're not going to fall into that trap. We're going to achieve much more solid positions. Trust me on this. My win rate against this system with what I'm about to show you is in the 70 percentile, maybe like 71, 72% right now. My win rate against this system in the past when I've played c4 is probably down around 30%. So fight the urge to play c4. Make the book move what the computer says is a clear best move here, which is knight to f3. So we're going to start to knight to f3 because in the Scandinavian, one of our absolute best moves with white is going to be to get our pawn to d4 in one push, and our knight is going to back it up there. So our knight is perfectly placed on f3 here. Now black will take back immediately, and now we get in our d4. And in this system, in this video rather I should say, I'm going to show you how to fight against bishop to f5. Now bishop can also come to g4. Bishop to g4, it has some really fun lines for us, and I'm going to make a separate video on that. It's very easy to combat. We have plenty of options available to us. h3 pushes, inviting the bishop to take, bringing our queen out to f3. We still get in c4, kicking the knight, and we start walking our pawns up the board, getting these beautiful positions. Without his white bishop on the board and our queen sitting on f3, we get pressure on b7. So bishop to g4 is not dangerous for us. You can even play it just more solidly and play something like bishop to e2. Those moves are going to be very intuitive for you, which is why I wanted to make this video first, because these moves are a little bit trickier to find. The absolute best move here for us is going to be a go ahead and play bishop to d3. And bishop to d3 is what I also use to combat this f5 bishop by black when he's in a Caro Kann structure and we're in an advanced setup with our pawns on d4 and e5, and black decides to get his bishop out to f5. The best move in that position as well, and the one that I recommend in my videos on how to beat the Caro Kann with e5, is that we are going to chase away this bishop with bishop to d3. So it's nice that we are using similar tasks here. One of the reasons is that this is so important is because bishop to e2, which can still be played, is much more passive, and it puts us in a position where we might have to face knight to b4, and then he's getting double pressure on our c2 pawn, And one of the only ways to defend against this is to put our knight over on a3, and who wants to do that? Knights on the rim are grim. By getting the bishop to d3 first, now if his knight comes and jumps over here, we're just taking a free bishop. So this is the strongest move here. I'm going to show you a little sideline just for fun where black decides to move the bishop over to g4. So he decides to move the bishop over to g4, so we're going to get a little taste of some things that we can do in this system here. And one of the things that we can absolutely do here is we can just castle. We can just castle, and then after moves like knight to c6 or c6 in general, we can go ahead and play c4, kick the knight back to f6, start to play h3, and be totally fine here as things progress. So just want to show you that this is not a dangerous move, and what you are most likely to face is you're most likely to face bishop takes d3. Our continuation here for this, as you can see, fairly obvious. We're going to take back with the queen. We're not going to take back with the pawn and stack our pawns and have this terrible formation, because we know how to play chess. And then we're very, very solid here. We might see moves like knight to d7, etc. These are going to be fairly easy to play against. The strongest continuation for black here is going to be e6, because it allows him to develop his dark squared bishop, possibly with check, and then gets him ready to castle. So e6 is one of the harder continuations for us to learn how to fight against. In a situation like this, we should just go ahead and play c4, kicking the knight back to f6. From here, we can get castled, and now we have just a nice, solid position where we're ready to play some chess. What we also like here, and just something that I want to bring to your attention, if we castle here right away, we are possibly going to have to face the move c5. c5 is more of a move that you would expect to see from a French player on black. It's not a move we expect to see from a Scandinavian player. And so one of the things that I would suggest here is rather than just castling, is to go ahead and play knight to c3, because now when this c5 push comes, we're so much more prepared for d5, because now we've got 3 pieces going at this, where black also has 3 pieces, but we have that 4th piece, the pawn, so now we own the d5 square. We own the d5 square, and if he takes, then we actually don't even have to recapture right away. We can just play bishop to g5 and start to build some initiative here. And the knight has options of coming over here for forks, so that after this is taken and the queen comes out, this is good chess. If you don't want to get into these complications here, what you can always do after black captures on d5 is you can take a slightly less advantageous, but still very, very good for white. You can just take back with the knight, and then after he takes, we're not going to give away our queen, certainly. We're going to enjoy this nice advantage of space in the center, with black's bishop being limited to where it can jump out to by this. We can now turn the c5 pawn of black's into a disadvantage for him. He can basically only develop the bishop to e7. We get castled first, he gets castled shortly after, and we just have a nice position here. Easy moves to find, like rook to e1 and things like that. So just really good stuff here. Wanted you guys to be able to figure out how to handle this bishop to f5 move in this knight f6 system. A lot of people playing it against me. It seems like the first 7 or 8 times I played this system, I was getting bishop to g4 instead, so I learned how to fight against that. But now all of a sudden, in my last 3 or 4 Scandinavian games in a row, I haven't fought any traditional Scandinavians. I've strictly been fighting against knight f6 Scandinavians like this, which is really mind-boggling, because it is not the best way to play the Scandinavian from a positional standpoint. And then to go with it, I've also now been facing this bishop to f5 version a lot. So we love this version here. I might make a video on a little sideline here where we play knight to h5 right away. Knight to h5, your opponent can play bishop to g7, and then after you take and he takes, he is going to have this open file for the rook, so we're potentially going to be looking at queenside castling there. And then if the bishop comes all the way back to d7, that's not necessarily bad for black. So I have played and won some games with the knight h4 variation, but I'm much more a fan of sticking to what we do in the advanced version of the Caro Kann when we have that pawn on e5. Coming out here to fight with the bishop, because we know that our opponent in our rating range is almost always going to take, it is black's best move, and it's not hard to find, and it's fairly intuitive, so that we can take back right away, and then we're ready to fight with these simple systems that kick the knight. We get that knight to c3. We're totally ready to handle this c5 attack and just take complete ownership of the center here. So hope you guys kind of enjoy this. This wasn't necessarily a game that I played, but this is some of the analysis that I've been putting into this bishop f5 move. So hope you guys found this one enjoyable, and I will catch you on the next one.